So we had about, I think about 600 people sign up for this class. We'll probably have about 60 or 50 live. And I'm really excited for that because I haven't taught live in a while. And it's always great to be live with all of you. So I'm 22 weeks, you can see barely. I'm 22 weeks pregnant and I have a baby Augie who's 18 months old. And I'm Kate Pope. You probably know me as Wild Nutritionist, and I teach gut health for moms and babies. Okay, Christina from Nova Scotia, Canada. My son is 3.5. Jordan Welsh from Missouri, 4.5 and 1. Devi from South Africa, and I have a 4-year-old son. Christine from Orange County, California. Babies due early December. Amazing. Felicia, Pennsylvania, 2 girls, 6 and 5 months. Chris from Brazil, 1 and 4. Awesome. Jormarie, and I'm from LA, 2.5 and 8 months. Anna from London. Angel from Colorado. Christina from Denver. Jack from Iowa. 7.5-month-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. Anna from South Florida. We're from Florida. 10-year-old girl and a 4-year-old girl and an 8-month-old. Amazing. So you can see we're all over Norway, the UK, San Francisco, New Zealand, Chile, Australia. Oh, wow. You guys are up early. Let me see this on the gallery. Yeah, okay. So the way the class is going to work, we have about 50 minutes of teaching, and I'm going to explain to you all about gut health, all the things that I talked about that we were, on my Instagram and on the page for the class. And then I'm going to talk to you about my course, which is called Mama Baby Biome. And I made this course after my son was born, and the birth of my son, like I'm sure many of you can relate, changed the trajectory of my life, of course, for the better. And there was lots of learning along the way. He was born by C-section, which was unplanned and very disappointing for me. And over the past 18 months, I've done a lot of healing around it. I've made a lot of peace with it. And I accept fully our birth as beautiful and meant to be. And it's still a really difficult topic for me to talk about because I really like to talk about things from a felt sense perspective. And so I get really caught off guard, and maybe you can relate to this when someone will just be like, how long did you push for? Or what was your birth like? Really offhanded conversation, because I really need to tell this story with a lot of feeling and remembrance for what that was for me and what it's continued to be for the past 18 months as he's grown and I've healed and he's healed. And Mama Baby Biome has been a big part of my healing, creating this course and getting this message out there to moms around healing the microbiome, gut health, and really helping our families thrive so that our culture thrives. This is something that's super important for me, and really drawing a bigger cultural attention to mothers and what mothers need, and helping mothers in times where the advice is so like broad and far reaching and not always helpful. And so I love to teach from the place of the body. My background's in dance, and I have always loved my body. I've always really been invested in my own health. And I think that when people understand more about their physiology and more about how the body actually absorbs nutrients, this creates power and confidence. And that's the best thing that I could give to you, because you're the one who's going to make all the changes. You're the one who's going to take the steps. And the more assurance and strength that you know in your bones that you're doing the right thing, the easier it's going to be for you. And it's not always easy because our babies are being born sick today. And that's because we have a sick world. And I also think we have a beautiful world and a world of repair. And that's another one of my messages that I want to teach and share, is that we can heal from anything. I truly believe that. I've seen it in myself and my son and in the lots of clients that I've worked with. So one of my mentors from GAPS recently. I'm a GAPS practitioner. I'll explain more what that is in a moment. But one of my mentors recently passed, and today she had a memorial service, and they zoomed it all over the world because she worked with thousands of people, and you might know her. Her name's Dr. Becky Plotner. And what was so amazing about Dr. Becky was that she was just had the biggest heart. She loved to share and she loved to teach, and she did from her heart always. And so I am passing on her legacy. I share the GAPS legacy. I teach about regenerative agriculture and real food. My husband is a whole animal butcher, so we infuse a lot of healing the earth into our work because it's not separate. We're doing systems healing in the body, we're doing systems healing in the work. And I just wanted to give a nod to the lineage that I come from, which I deeply respect and honor through my teaching. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm very excited. So like I said, we're going to have about 50 minutes of teaching, and then we're going to go into Q&A, and I'm going to teach you about my course. Sorry about that. I'm going to teach you a little bit about my course, which is on sale for the next week, a really big sale for the next 24 hours. We're doing $100 off, which is the biggest sale we've offered. And it's very valuable. Over 100 women are in it. We have a robust Facebook group. It's self-paced with 10 cook-alongs and lots of nutrition information, how to start baby on solids, how to heal from these modern things that we're experiencing, like eczema, like colic, like allergies, food allergies, immune problems, all of these things. So you can go ahead and put your questions in the chat as they come up, but just know I'm not going to be tracking there because I'm going to be teaching. I have some notes, I have some tea, so I invite you to do the same, or some meat stock if you know about meat stock. And I will get to the questions at the end. I do have a hard stop today because in America, Thanksgiving is on Thursday, and we have our final market before Thanksgiving today. So I need to go to the farmer's market and gather my cooking supplies for this big dinner that I'll be cooking on Thursday. All right, so let's talk about the context. I have my notes over here. That just helps me stay on track because there's a lot to say in this topic that I love. And I want to first introduce it by talking to you and taking you through a little bit of a visualization for the context that we're in today. We no longer live in an organic planet. We no longer have clean oceans, clean waters. We have a remarkable ecosystem which can repair itself and can clean itself up, but we need to input things into that environment in order for that to happen. So I want you to think about your grandmother, and I want you to picture her hands. And I want you to think about what she did day to day with her hands, what she touched, what she put in her mouth, what was the pace of her life like? And then we'll go one generation back and we'll think about her mother, and we'll think about her hands. And what did she touch? And what did she put in her mouth? And what was the pace of her day like? Did she have antibiotics? Likely not. Did she have birth control? Likely not. Did she have processed food? Likely not, right? Everything about her life 4 generations back was much simpler, cleaner, slower. So here we are in these modern times. We're going faster. We're in contact with a lot more chemicals and toxicants. We're eating foods, and we've been inherited with generational accumulation of those processed foods, whereas our great-grandmother has not, or our great-great-grandmother also had not inherited decades of eating processed foods. So when we look at the state of children today, we think about how our great-great-grandmother was birthed and the world she was birthed into versus what our children are being birthed into today. We can objectively look at inputs that are totally different than our ancestral history. And that is important because our physiology has not changed and evolved to match the race and the pace of modern life. We don't have the nutritional stores nor the microbiome health to protect ourselves like our grandmother and our great-grandmother did. We need to rebuild this, and our children need to eat for repair in this time in order for their children to have their health. So a lot of times we birth these babies, and birth is a threshold moment. And suddenly the canary in the coal mine is screaming at us with all of these symptoms. And what are we to do about it? Because there's so much chatter and so much information. And these babies really need help. Our children really need help. And maybe you, as the mom, like for me, my healing journey did start in my mid-20s. And I was like, gosh, I don't want to live with chronic migraines, and I don't want to have anxiety and depression, and I don't want to be chronically sneezing and having hay fever all year round. I had to really work on my nervous system health, my stress, and my nutrition. And I want that to translate to my baby's body. So building up nutritional stores before having a baby is ideal, but we don't all have that education and that luxury. And so there's a lot we can do as we are pregnant and with our babies and our children, even if they're already 5, there's a lot we can do to help them in their symptoms. And it comes from the kitchen and from simplifying our lives, really slowing down, connecting with nature. And that means connecting through food, resting more and resting better, building community through food and through our families, and helping them really galvanize support around you, because you are the hearth. You are the center of your family's wellness. That is what mothers are and do. They are the center, and everything revolves around them, which is kind of a lot of pressure, but it's also a great honor, And so we are now here in this time, and it's like eczema, immune system issues, allergies. Everyone has food allergies. Like everyone, everywhere you go, people are like, yeah, I can't eat that. Yeah, I'm on this diet. Yeah, I'm on this. What I love about GAPS is it's a medical grade nutritional protocol. So you can use it for really extreme cases. And I do work with people who have, infants with FPIES, which is a protein intolerance, can only stay on a small amount of foods for a period of time, really bad seeping, weeping eczema, constant spitting up. It can run the gambit of severity, and what your experience of that severity is relative. But GAPS is also just really about real food and preparing it at home in your kitchen and understanding the body and how the body works, so that you can put the input in that supports the ecosystem. Okay, so more specifically, gut health. We hear about this all the time. What heals the gut? What is the microbiome? Your gut starts at your mouth, ends at your anus. It's a long tube, and this is where we digest nutrients. It's really important because in our gut is housed 80% of our immune system that we know of. So likely more, but what they've studied so far is around 80% of our immune system is stored in the gut in specialized cells called Peyer's patches. So when we have a compromised or a leaky gut where the holes of your gut are opened, then food particles and toxins can flow in and out of the bloodstream. The immune system says, wait a second, this is a big problem. It starts flagging things, and it starts creating allergic reactions or an autoimmune condition. So really autoimmunity should be called diseases of toxicity. It's not really like your immune system is going haywire. It's that it's constantly having to work in overdrive to clean up the system. So leaky gut foundationally is a root for many of our modern systems. Where does leaky gut come from? How does it happen? So we have this big system. It has to be integral. It has to be closed, and it has to have collagen, a lot of collagen, to keep it upright. And, all of our muscles, our skeletal structure, we need collagen to help us build. Because collagen is the most ubiquitous protein in our body, we need to constantly be refueling with collagen, because it's also a magnet for things. Things can stick to our collagenous tissues and create more issues for our immune system. The other part about our gut health is that this is where we house our microbiome. So our microbiome is trillions of different species that are meant to work synergistically with us, okay? We have probiotic strains There are opportunistic strains, and there are pathogenic strains. Okay, so sorry, this is beneficial strains, opportunistic strains, and transient strains, which basically means that they leave the body really easily with food. All of our beneficial microbes are transient, and they can kind of play on either team. Okay, so when we have a wipeout from antibiotics of good beneficial bacteria, then we have an opportunity where those opportunistic or pathogenic microbes can come in and take over. The pathogenic microbes come in, they start to rule the roost, the ecosystem has a decline. So when the ecosystem is declined, then we have symptoms. That's when the immune system is involved. That's when our skin starts secreting toxins. That's when we have extreme fatigue. Our organs start functioning at a lower level because now our liver has a huge burden because we have these pathogenic microbes who are in there and they're eating stuff and they're keeping control of other microbes and they're pooping and they're reproducing, and it's accumulated toxic waste. So when I say the body has an overburden of toxins, I don't just mean coming from the outside. I mean that a compromised microbiome or an imbalanced microbiome, another way I say it is a declined ecosystem. That means that there is accumulated waste coming from within inside of our bodies based on the microbes. So we have two issues really going on that are resolved by using real food that's cooked at home, which is we have this structure of our gut and our digestive system, which is compromised because of maybe prescription drugs, maybe processed foods, maybe just stress, maybe your environment, maybe damaged microbiome, imbalanced microbiome, which has caused leaky gut. Yeast is one of those ones that can just bust through the holes of that really thin gut lining and create leaky gut. So it kind of works together. And then we have our microbiome, which is meant to work with us to keep us healthy. They have jobs such as cleansing, such as detoxifying, which is kind of the same thing. They're protectors, so they're our first line of defense. They metabolize nutrients. So in the gut lining, this microbiome in a thick mucous membrane sits there, and it helps us to assimilate nutrients and send them around the body to their jobs. If that is declined, no matter how healthy our diet is, we're not assimilating those nutrients. Protectors, cleansers, administrators, they tell people, other cells and other enzymes what to do. There are like janitors, which I said, and they are synthesizers, and they also create vitamins, which is really interesting too. So our microbiome depends, our vitamin assimilation and creation with some vitamins depends on the state of our microbiome. So when we have a declined state and we pass on this declined state to our babies also have problems. How does the infant microbiome form is where we're headed next. But I'm going to take a breath. And yeah, I think we'll just let the questions go till the end. Thank you. I'm going to sip my tea. I worked with a nervous system teacher for 5 years, still working with her. Her name is Kimberly Ann Johnson. You might know her. She's pretty famous. And one of the things that she says is that, like, let your body and your system take on and take in what it can. So kind of like a sieve, just allow this to wash over you, and what sticks for today is exactly what's meant to stick. You can watch this recording multiple times. You can learn more from me on my Instagram and in my course. So I acknowledge that this is very power packed, and some of you might have already come in and been like, oh no, I knew all this already. But yeah, if you're like, whew, that's a lot of information so far, just let it wash over you. And we will try to leave the class with some really strong takeaways that you for sure know how to take action around. Okay, so baby's microbiome, how's it formed? When the baby is in our womb, there is obviously nutrients that are passed through the umbilical cord, and the placenta has a microbiome. And one of the ways that the placenta passes nutrients is with microbes. So we are starting the seeding of the microbiome while the baby is in utero. They used to thought the womb was sterile, that there was no passing of anything that went in there. We now know that's not true. The Environmental Working Group has done studies on this and shown toxins that were banned in the 70s are showing up in the umbilical cords of babies. So we still have this accumulation of toxins from the outside that are impacting our babies. Not to mention whatever has gone on personally in your life that has changed or declined your ecosystem. So we're passing nutrients, this beautiful, amazing, miraculous system. We're passing nutrients and we're passing microbes. So the baby beginnings of the baby's microbiome is formed. But as we all know, babies, when they're born, they're really vulnerable. They don't have their immune system is not fully formed. Their gut is not fully formed. And part of being on the outside in the first 3 or so months is fully developing that system. So when they go through the birth canal, they take a big gulp of air and microbes. This is what infuses and starts the seeding of their microbiome. And the mother's vaginal flora influences the state of the microbiome of the baby. So if you've had a lot of vaginal infections and you've had chronic yeast and you've had things going on down there for many, many years, that's going to transfer to your baby. The vaginal microbiome, how it's formed it's by the bowel microbiome. They're really closely related. And when we have a lacking of beneficial strains like lactobacillus, the pH is risen. And what that means is we're now susceptible to outside invaders. And that's where a lot of these skin stuff or even yeast infections will come from, because we don't have the proper pH, because we don't have the proper microbes, which are keeping the pH where it needs to be. Does that make sense? So the bowel flora influences the vaginal flora, and the bowel flora comes from the gut flora, but they're all slightly different. Okay. You're also, whatever partner you're having sexual contact with is also influencing the baby's microbiome. And whoever's closely having contact with the baby after the baby's born is also influencing their microbiome. So there's a shared microbiome of the home. A very interesting study came out in 2023 in Nature Journal showing us that the longer twins lived together, the more microbiome they shared. The longer they lived apart, the less microbiome they shared. The more microbes were shared within people in the same houses than people in the same village, but there was also cross microbial sharing with people within the village, and just even more within those houses, which makes sense if we think about it. And people in the house were developing antibiotic resistant strains when other family members were on antibiotics. So that right there is extremely profound, because it shows us the crossing of the microbiome and how much our entire house is our microbiome. Our family is our microbiome, and it's shared. And so it's really important that everyone in the house is on board with this. If you have a picky eater and we know the root of that is microbiome, and we expect this child to change their eating and change their microbiome, we can't expect that of them without having the parents also understand that in their own bodies first. So this is really about changing family culture, literally. Cultures. How do we get our culture? We make fermented food. This is something that the father of fermentation, Sandor Katz, talks about all the time. He talks about the culture, which comes from the culturing of things. This is something that our ancestors have done forever. Fermented dairy, processed our meats in a way that created fermented meat. Think about hanging legs of pig made into prosciutto. That's a salt brine, essentially, that creates a probiotic food. So the culture of the microbiome, the baby's microbiome, is a combination. It's mostly the mother. The dominant strains come from the mother, and it's also influenced by its immediate world around when the baby's out, right? So father touching, partner touching, grandmother touching, holding, what's going on in your home, etc. When the baby is born by C-section, there is less beneficial strains passed. There is less seeding of the microbiome, which is an opportunity for pathogens to take hold. Essentially, that's what happens. So it's really important if you have a C-section, if you had a C-section birth, to support your baby's microbiome, and specifically by helping mother to heal. All the things that heal the scar tissue and from the C-section are going to support the baby's gut and microbiome, because it's healing the mama's gut. And when it comes to starting solids for baby, we want to be really particular, and we don't need to rush them at all with solid foods. We need to go really slow and just help their bodies build, help their microbiome accumulate beneficial microbes, and you might see some die off happen, which is when the pathogenic strains die, which is a good thing. It looks like your symptoms that you already have typically, and sometimes it can feel a little scary because you're like, oh, I'm doing all this work. I'm cooking all this food. It's supposed to be helping, but things are looking worse. That's a good sign. Okay. So there's nitty gritty nuances to that, which I teach fully in the course, and I help people understand what die-off is, and it really flips healing on its head. It makes it like, oh, I'm sick, I'm actually healing. This is great, because all the input that's going into the body is beneficial foods that are helping you heal and helping change the ecosystem, raising that ecosystem from its decline state, and it takes a lot of time. So just on that note, people do see really great results right away. But sometimes, depending on how deep the damage is to the microbiome, it can take a lot of time, because like I said, these microbes are transient. So just because we start eating fermented foods doesn't mean that it's just going to stick and, okay, we did 1 week of fermented foods or 2 months of fermented foods and it's all healed. Okay, it takes a lot of time and consistent effort and work. And sometimes people have such a hard time even introducing those foods. So that's when we rely on the animal foods, the building foods that repair the collagen of the gut lining, that support the mucous membrane. And we go really, really small with ferments, diluted sometimes for a baby. And I'm talking about around the time of starting solids specifically. With the breastfeeding window, it's best to just support the mom's microbiome. You can also, there are schools of thought that introduce drops of diluted probiotic brines to the baby. Something that you could do is like use it as a moisturizer. So you put it on your skin. And then the baby is obviously having a lot of skin to skin contact and is taking in that in very subtle amounts, almost like a homeopathic dose. So you can do that with like a fermented cod liver oil. You can do that with sauerkraut brine. You can put a little commercial grade probiotic on your nipple before feeding. That can really help. What else influences the baby's microbiome? Breast milk, of course. Breast milk is amazing, whole, beautiful food. It doesn't just contain food for the baby, it contains food for the microbiome. And this is in the form of oligosaccharides. And these are special carbohydrates that are meant to feed the infant's microbiome. So this is incredible. And no matter if you had antibiotics in birth or something went really terribly wrong with your birth, breast is still best. I know there are situations where mothers cannot breastfeed, and I help them through that, or they do some sort of combination feeding. So I teach how to wean off formula as fast as possible, how to support the mother's nervous system so that her milk supply comes in. This is really important. Not having fear, not having a bunch of people in your head chattering. And then, of course, there are some cases where it's just not possible. And so we can do things like creating our own homemade formulas and supporting the baby's microbiome just the best that we can. And there's no reason to feel any shame about that or to have like regret. You know, it's just, that's your path, that's your lesson, that's your gift to transform in this moment. What can I do with what I have, with the situation I've been presented with? All right, baby's microbiome. We're kind of getting a picture of that. I did start my son because we had the C-section, and you know that also means drugs, which are damaging to the microbiome. A huge dose of antibiotics, which was just like, you know, very intense moment for me to have so much work that I put in just like wiped out in 5 minutes. I did put him on a commercial probiotic right away, and that really helped a lot. My son's number one symptom as a baby, he was very calm. He was a great sleeper, pretty good at pooping. The main thing was he was constantly spitting up my breast milk. And at the time after my birth, I was having like some sugar, some wheat, and the yeast really bloomed in my body once the antibiotics were administered. And what that meant was that my milk was very sugary and yeasty, and he was very yeasty. And so when I would nurse him, he would spit up from the yeast that was likely overgrown in his stomach. A lot of reflux is yeast overgrown in the stomach. And so I changed my diet after 3 months and went back on GAPS, the tried and true that I know. I specifically emphasize so much organ meats, liver, heart, animal fats. That helps drown the yeast. I also increased my kefir again, started taking kefir, had a lot of soups, meat stocks, number one staple. And my son's spitting up resolved by like 85% or 90%, which is pretty crazy because at this point he's 3 months old. He'd spit up every day of his life, like a lot of spit up, like 5, 7, a lot of times a day, almost every time he nursed. And so for it to really reduce like that, when I changed my diet, I was like, okay, there's something going on here. But just on note on changing my diet, emotionally, I wasn't ready. And I speak about this in my course. I speak about this on my Instagram. I just didn't have the capacity for that. I'd already done some preparing my body for healing, and I like really emotionally, comfort wise, needed the chocolate chip cookie. So we did the best version of that we could. We got through a level of, I got through that emotionally, did enough healing where I built up the strength to say, okay, I'm ready to try. And I just share that part because like, this is a big lifestyle change. This is a understanding of like what food is, the re-education around food. And I think that it's nothing to rush, but sometimes we do need to implement discipline, which is like a really masculine trait. And in that time of the postpartum, like I just couldn't do it for myself. And I just, I have grace for that period of time and we were okay. So I think that that's something for you as the mother to discern now with this education that you have and you're going to continue to get. Okay. So baby's microbiome forming, symptoms, yeast overgrowth. And now we're going to talk about what helps to heal the gut, I believe. Yeah, I'll just speak for a moment about the atopic triad because I've covered the immune system a lot. And I have another recorded masterclass that you can watch that goes really into detail about the atopic triad. Essentially, why do symptoms, allergies, asthma, and eczema relate to gut health? So what a lot of people don't know is that the lungs are detox organs. And when things accumulate in the lungs, like think about if you've seen a picture of the lungs, it's like extremely intricate, right? Every part of the body really is, but the lungs kind of have this butterfly effect and they have so many ventricles and places for things to get stuck. And if we think about what happens when we have coughing or mucus, we have like an escalator that comes up and brings stuff up and out of the body. And so when we have an accumulation of phlegm, that's an accumulation of toxicity that the body cannot get rid of fast enough or appropriately. So when asthma starts to come on, it's usually triggered by a sugary cold dessert, usually dairy, usually ice cream, usually overly sweet, maybe dyes, maybe like crazy chemicals in that ice cream as well. So the asthma is triggered, then they go to the doctor and they get some suppressant drugs, which then stop the lungs from doing their job. And this is where asthma becomes life-threatening. So what do we need to do to support asthma? We need to clean up the gut. We need to support the gut health so that the lungs aren't having to detox and expel all the gunk that's actually coming from our gut microbiome. So when we connect the dot between that symptom, between that food that that kid ate, which then triggered a symptom which is now ongoing, we just have to take a few steps back and get to the root, which is supporting the gut with meat stock. So what about the skin? The skin is made up of the same type of cells that our gut is made up of, epithelial cells. These cells line things, and epithelial cells regenerate in the body, but the body is really smart. So it will be like, I need to allocate my resources to the gut or to the brain or to this liver, wherever the highest priority in the body is, that's what the body is going to prioritize. The skin, not really a high priority, not a big deal for the body. The skin can have ailments, the skin can have crusties, the skin can be dry, and that's not going to be life-threatening to you. It can be very distressing for a mother, and I'm not diminishing if your child has eczema or if you have eczema. I'm not diminishing that at all. I'm just showing you it's actually something really smart that the body's doing by using the skin, this huge organ that we have, to help us distribute and to get toxins out. It shows us that the gut is not properly moving things through the bowel, and also the gut is not balanced. Because if the ecosystem was balanced, we'd be able to eliminate these toxins without pushing them through the skin. Anytime something comes through the skin and a mark is left, that just means there's not enough resources to rebuild tissues for the skin. So we need ample building of the gut and of the ecosystem, AKA the microbiome, to help heal our skin. And it's happened, like, it's one of my favorite symptoms to work with because I know how stressful it can be for moms, and for it to change is just like the most glorifying, beautiful result. Really, I love that. And our skin is also, from like an emotional standpoint, our skin is also where we experience like our sensitivities. So if you're having a hard time processing your birth, if you haven't done any birth story medicine, if there's something really tender that you're holding on to, this also might come out through the skin. So I do like to work on different layers of the body. I like to work in a spiritual sense. I like to work in an emotional sense. I like to work physically and nutritionally because I see it as a whole system, and it's very, I can't separate it. So in my course, we definitely, like, the main focus is food, nutrients, building the physiology, but I also go into that like psychosomatic healing as well, because that's also my background, which was dance. So atopic triad: asthma, allergies, eczema. So allergies, why do allergies show up? We covered this a little bit in the beginning. The immune system is housed in the gut. And when we eat something and leaky gut happens, that means a protein is now out of the digestive system in the bloodstream where it doesn't belong. The immune system will flag that, and the immune system will say, attack this. So now every time you have a protein or a protein that's related to this, or even it doesn't have to be a protein, if it's just a sensitivity or intolerance, the immune system is on it after it, which is a good thing. But we don't want our immune system to be in chronic overload mode. We want our immune system to be working really well. And that means taking care of our gut health. So that's the atopic triad in a nutshell, as not by explained by conventional medicine, which just is like, I don't know, here, have the steroid. I don't know, here, take this medication. I don't know, there's no cure. That's really pretty much what we're offered. And that's not the camp that I live in at all. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things so far, and I want to continue on by talking a little bit about solid food introduction for babies, because I know quite a bit of you came here for that. And just like seeing the names and the mamas in the chat, so many of the moms that I work with have like a 5-year-old and a newborn, or some range of that. A lot of moms that I work with also take the course while pregnant, and a lot of moms are also first-time moms. So that's like the main majority of people that are in the course Mama Baby Biome. And that's where we work through all the foundational steps for healing the gut. And this is where I also share my masterclass, Solid Foundations, which is teaching a step-by-step method for introducing solids. And I talked a lot about a C-section birth and like why the microbiome is compromised, and why it's really important to introduce solids in a specific way. But also, even if you didn't have a C-section birth, that doesn't mean that your microbiome is just perfect and robust and your kid will have no symptoms, right? We're seeing that. We're seeing people who have natural births at home, beautiful, amazing births, and they're still having like extreme eczema, or they're having some symptom that they can't deal with. And that goes back to that visualization we did at the beginning, just speaking about the world at large and like what's really going on. I hate to be an alarmist, and I don't teach it to be an alarmist, but I also think when we understand like the reality of, especially in the United States, we just have an insane amount of toxins in our food, in our water, in our world, then we can educate ourselves and do something about it rather than just be a victim to it. So that's why I'm really serious and straightforward about, how it is with the onslaught of what we're dealing with, and how that's grown over time throughout generations. So when we start babies on solid foods, and this is also going to really be a mirror for what foods heal the gut, because we've talked about what leaky gut is, we've talked about these symptoms, but now you all really want to know what is going to do it. What's going to do the trick, Kate? So it's a process. When it comes to starting a baby on solids, the first food that I do is meat stock. And meat stock is not bone broth. They are different. If you want to learn more about meat stock versus bone broth, please download my free guide in my bio on Instagram or on my website, because this will really help you to just know what the difference is. But quickly, the difference is that meat stock always comes from raw meat and bones, and it's cooked for a shorter amount of time. whereas bone broth sometimes comes from leftover carcasses or already cooked bones and is cooked for 36, 72, however many long hours, days, right? Meat stock is not that. Meat stock is a short cook time, just enough to extract the collagen and gelatin, which will heal and seal the gut lining, but not enough to change the protein structure, which can exacerbate symptoms in the gut. It can actually change the molecules of the amino acids, which are the building blocks for all of our hormones, neurotransmitters, and more. It can change that structure to be very similar to MSG. So someone with a damaged gut cannot digest bone broth, a 36, 72-hour cooked broth from the store or at home. Someone with a damaged microbiome and gut can digest meat stock, which is cooked for 3 hours, 6 hours, no more really than 10 hours usually. Like the bigger the animal, the longer the cook time. Makes sense, right? Because you're breaking down proteins, you're melting collagen into gelatin. So it takes time. If it's a chicken, you can do it in an hour and a half. It tastes better. It's more nutrient dense because we're using the meat and the bone. And most of the nutrients are coming from the collagen and the meat and the fat, not so much the bones. Bones contain minerals, and we are getting some of that, but like it's not the main reason why we're drinking meat stock or bone broth, right? We're drinking it to rebuild the system, and meat stock is where we begin always, and especially with babies. So meat stock, we start with a drop of fermented brine from sauerkraut. That is inoculating the baby's system, and so we just go really slow with that. And then we have a slow building up of foods, going to liver, adding in bone marrow, increasing animal fats gradually, egg yolk. Now, even some of the moms who I work with still have an issue with egg, still have an issue with dairy, and dairy is a part of the protocol. So what we do in that case is we just leave it out for, if we know it's an IgE allergy, we leave it out for 6 months and we work on building the system. And then we start with 1 drop. And sometimes we have to change up what animal we're using. So sometimes people just really can't do chicken eggs. And sometimes people even are sensitive to chicken stock. Oftentimes this has to do with the chicken's life, what the chicken was fed, because a common allergen for babies and humans, moms too, is starchy things like corn and soy, which many chickens are fed a diet of corn and soy. So when it comes to allergies and addressing those food allergies, we don't need to panic over them. We just need to leave them out for a while, build the system, build the gut, build the microbiome, and then slowly introduce. That's pretty much how we handle it. I obviously go into way further detail and way more of the step-by-step phases for adding in food for babies. But the main idea here is that we give the body building foods. We give the baby lots of fat-soluble nutrients. We don't have to introduce a bajillion foods for babies to have a diverse palate. This is a myth, but it's a popular one. And because I've just come from this food lineage and I've come from this background, not my whole life, I was standard American diet until 20, 22, something like that. But it's interesting, this like collision that's happening with me in the mainstream world, because sometimes I'm so out of it that I don't even know, like, I'm shocked when people tell me like, oh yeah, allergy testing is just like a part of the standard pediatrician, like before year 1, you get an allergy test and then you're handed this like thing that's like, your baby can't eat these. And like, it's just weird because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, sure, we want to know if there's a life-threatening allergy. But getting a test and having someone tell us like, you're never going to be able to eat this food again isn't really helpful. And you're gonna know to an extent how allergic your baby is just by being and interacting with them. Like, you're gonna feed them a food, something will happen or something won't happen, and then you'll have a sense of what's going on. So anyway, I don't really believe in allergy testing because the work that we have to do to build the microbiome can happen before spending lots of money on this test. What they tell you in the test, you probably already knew through your assumptions and your great observation skills of looking at your baby, right? And we have to do the work of healing that allergy anyway. And so why waste $250 on a test or however much it costs? No judgment if that's what you've done. But for me, I just like to go a route that's more holistic and efficient, basically. Okay, so these foods can be really great teachers for how the microbiome, how the body works, because we'll directly see by what we're inputting into the body what comes out symptom wise or not, or healing. Like, this is the beautiful thing. Like, you start giving your baby meat stock, and I can tell you, I have so many DMs. Maybe some of you are those mothers of videos and pictures of babies eating meat stock as their first food and thriving, and people saying, I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe it, how well my baby's doing, because we're just starting simply. So with babies, first meat stock, it's plain, no salt, no veggies. We just do meat with a bone attached to it. I teach this in the class, exactly how to make a proper batch of meat stock. And then we build up from the easiest to digest foods to the more difficult to digest foods, which of course includes things like broccoli and carrots and avocado. All of those are included in a protocol for weaning baby or adding in solids. But you don't always have to use those plant foods. And if your baby has severe symptoms, most cases, leaving out the plant foods makes it a lot better. And the gradual introduction of plant foods, if they cause problems, would be trying fermented foods. Those don't work. Okay, we cook that fermented food in a soup and then we try it that way. So every time we hit a roadblock, there's a little negotiation that we do. We take a step back and we try again. That's really the process. And it's really beautiful because you learn so much about healing. You get connected to your body and your own healing and your baby's healing. And it's just very foundational work. So I think that's all that I had planned for the class. And the teaching portion, which it's 11:49, so I'm right on the money with the timing. I also want to say just one more note about nervous system health and how I really like to teach this in a way that is available for you to take on what you can at the moment. And I will coach you and help you differentiate and discern what the most important thing is at this time, because I have more experience with the protocol and with my own body and working with all these clients. So that's what I do in the course. I give you all the lessons and information. And then when a question comes up, you can ask me in the Facebook group. Other moms will weigh in and share their experience and their wins. And then we can tweak things for you because it is very bio-individual. And with anything healing and health related, we don't want to go too much too fast. We don't want to push ourselves over the limit, because that's just going to be counterproductive. You know, if your nervous system's shot and you're so exhausted, which is already a symptom of motherhood, not necessarily nervous system shot, but exhaustion is a pretty standard one out there. You know, we don't want to add on too much too fast, but at the same time, we want to be realistic about like really healing these issues from the root and getting them out of the system for good, you know? Okay. So I have a few questions from my from my IG. I put up a little question box. So I'm just going to answer these ones quickly first, and then I'll go to the chat. So yeah, that's common. There's always a lot of questions, which is great. All right, how long to eliminate foods for eczema? This is bio-individual. You want to eliminate the foods like grains, starches, sugars. I mean, I'm keeping them out of my son's diet for just as long as possible, just because he's thriving on other foods. He loves other foods. He doesn't know what he's missing. And eventually he'll be able to try those foods. And I want his foundation to be like as stable as possible. So you want the symptoms to be gone. And once the eczema is gone, something else might surface and show you like, oh, I also need to work on this. So the standard healing for the microbiome and gut is about 2 years. Sometimes it's quicker, especially with babies. Sometimes it's longer. But I think what you'll feel is that like these foods are not, it's not restricting. It's actually very liberating. It can be a little adjustment to get used to, but I don't like to rush getting off of the healing foods just when you're right away when your symptoms disappear, because probably when you input that food that flares the symptom, it will come back. And so we want to give the body plenty of time to heal. If my baby has a lot of sensitivities, which I see this here, Ashley Morris, where do you suggest starting when your baby has a sensitivity to dairy, beef, soy, gluten, wheat, pumpkin, peanut, apple? Signs of leaky gut. My little one's 14 months. He can be so fussy. He loves milk, cheese, and butter. I stress about him not eating enough solids and getting him the nutrients, making sure he's going to gain weight. He is breastfeeding. Okay. So when your baby has a lot of sensitivities, you just leave out those sensitivities and you go forward with the nutrient dense foods that the baby can have, and you emphasize those, and you know in your bones that these foods are enough for your baby, and you see it through their symptoms. How's their mood? How's their sleep? That's going to tell you. This is a very call and response type of healing. You're looking, you're observing, you're writing things down, you're being with it. And so in that situation, you do lamb stock every day. Lamb stock all day long. If they can do egg yolk, you put egg yolk in it. You do liver, you do bone marrow, you do cooked vegetables in meats stock with ample animal fat. You let the body build and heal before starting to introduce those other foods. And likely what will happen is, like, you've done lamb stock for 10 days, 2 weeks, a month. Oh, look, they can do beef now. Why does that happen? Because the proteins and the amino acids from the lamb stock are healing the baby's gut, changing the microbiome, giving the microbiome a better house, and helping to eliminate toxins and things that the microbiome and the liver has to keep up with. And suddenly the baby can digest meats. The other thing is, if you've gotten an allergy test and it comes back with all these sensitivities, we don't know the quality of food that were used to test for these allergies. And the likelihood is that they're using very low quality food, which is not what we do on GAPS. We use the highest quality food that we can get our hands on, because that specifically speaks to the health of the ecosystem, the health of our planet. Not that we're having to buy this food to make our planet healthier, but that animal is healthy. That means that animal's collagen is healthy, not full of toxins. That animal didn't die with trauma. That animal didn't have shock, didn't get antibiotics, didn't get vaccines. Like, all that matters when it comes to translating to the body. Yeah. Now, if you can only afford conventional meat, get conventional meat and work with it, because it will still heal your baby. I'm not saying go vegetarian just because you can't get pasture raised or you can't get everything pasture raised. But if you're seeing an oversensitivity with a bunch of different foods, then I really emphasize quality, because we need to know what that animal ate. What the animal eats is what you eat. So you wouldn't eat a diet of corn and soy if your baby has allergies, eczema, and no one should. It's not food for us. It's not food for that animal. And so we need that animal to be outside, species-specific diet, which is grass, getting vitamin D from the sun. Those nutrients are going to translate to our body. Can you make meat stock in Instant Pot? No, I do not recommend doing that, because cooking it too high too fast. And remember what I was talking about with meat stock versus bone broth. We want it to be a slow cook time. I recommend using a Dutch oven. This is the best thing to use, or a stainless steel pot. And I teach all about meat stock in the course, and really on my Instagram too. If you struggle with milk supply, what should you do? Well, there's a lot of answers to this question. Maybe you're saying you struggle with milk supply and you're combo feeding. I would say that getting you on plenty of nutrients every day and doing like birth story medicine and nervous system work to help your milk supply. If you've already done some combo feeding, then you can start your baby on solids as early as 4 months with meat stock and moving really slowly. And I teach you how and when exactly to start weaning off the formula so that the baby's just on nutrient dense foods and however much breast milk you can provide. My baby has MTHFR. So MTHFR, all these gene mutations, is going to be gut health work. The root of it is the microbiome. So following GAPS baby food introduction, applying what I said about allergies, getting mama on the full GAPS diet or a modified Weston A. Price / full GAPS. We've talked about the basic foods for infant gut health. How early can I introduce bone broth with severe eczema? Meat stock first. If the baby is on formula, then at 4 months. If the baby is on just breast milk, then, around 5.5, 6 months. Like, it's very much an individual question. I like you to discern that for yourself. But I think that it's better to keep babe on breast milk and to clean up your breast milk by going on full GAPS yourself, drinking more meat stock, supporting your microbiome, etc. Okay, this is a good one. My husband, I bought Smidge probiotic, which is the probiotic that I teach and recommend. And my husband is skeptical. Can babies get all things through breast milk? Babies, breast milk is a remarkable food. I think I really emphasize that during this class and in my teachings. I'm a big advocate for breastfeeding. And I've also talked about how our bodies are compromised in this day and age and what that means for us and our babies and how that translates through the milk. So the environmental working group has found things in our milk, and our milk is alive. It has a microbiome, and we transport microbes to the baby. And so the more probiotic and beneficial microbes mama is consuming to the extent that she can tolerate without die-off, the better for the baby and the mom. That's why I love Smidge. It really helped me. I mean, it was amazing how much he loved it, still loves it, asks for it, go to the fridge, wants it, loves Smidge. And sometimes if he's having like a meltdown or something, I'll just be like, probiotic. And, I see within like 15 minutes a shift happen. Sometimes it's like probiotic and liver capsule, or probiotic and sauteed liver, or probiotic and kefir, which is something that my son, I share about my whole kefir journey in the course. But basically, like, he had extreme die-off reactions for 10 days with kefir. And now he drinks like 12 to 24 ounces of raw goat milk kefir every day. And I know that that is so essential for his health and his microbiome. So kefir is a raw fermented milk, which has 60 to 70 beneficial strains of yeast and bacteria. How to introduce raw goat or cow milk for babies. This is something like babies have grown up for a long time on raw goat and cow milk. The most of those stories are, directly from the udder type of situation. And sometimes GAPS people, people that need the GAPS diet, people that have a damage to the microbiome, they cannot do raw milk yet. So like even my son, who has a very robust system despite his birth, I keep raw milk limited for him, and I rely on the fermented milk more. And so that's something like you'll just discern. A lot of babies can do fine on it. And I have babies in my course that are on raw milk and do good on raw milk. And, the Weston A. Price formula recipe is from a raw milk source. And I think that it can be really life-saving and beautiful, but it's not going to work in all cases because everyone's different. And some people aren't going to be able to digest it properly. So that's really like a individual answer, but I hope that gave you enough context to make some more decisions. Rosacea was another question. Can I talk about rosacea? Skin stuff, all the stuff I said about skin applies here. A lot of times rosacea is correlated with SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And so you would need to address that in order to heal the rosacea. And specifically, the protocol that is used for SIBO on GAPS is no plant GAPS or GAPS introduction diet, usually no plant intro. And I can help you through that in a one-on-one session, but I don't teach introduction in the course as much as I emphasize full GAPS, which is a very healing protocol. Okay, those are the IG questions. I have a lot of questions, I see. Yeah, I will. Okay. Amazing. Okay, my daughter was diagnosed with cow milk protein intolerance a few months ago. How do I navigate GAPS with her if she can't tolerate dairy and other foods? I also have to cut out a lot of my own diet, so continue breastfeeding. I'm overwhelmed. Yep. So there are a handful of mothers in your exact situation in the course right now. Just like I said, with the allergies, you just keep the cow milk out for a while and you build with all the other foods. And once it's been 6 months, you can try again. And I would recommend trying with a goat milk or a camel milk. And it can even be before 6 months. But like for a lot of moms that I've worked with, we'll try things in like really small amounts to see how it's going. And if it's not going the way that we want it to go, then we just say, okay, phew, we gotta really let this rest for 6 months and heal. If the placenta has a microbiome, can ingesting your placenta via placental encapsulation aid in redeveloping your own microbiome and your baby's microbiome? Good question. Probably. I feel like the placenta ingestion thing is like a very just individual choice. I think it has benefits, and if it's like something that's calling you to do it, great. I know there's other benefits besides a microbiome situation, but placenta encapsulation would also probably kill microbes. It's a living thing. And once we heat and dehydrate something, it's going to shift those nutrients. So that's something to consider as well. I want to expand my diet, but I'm nervous about her reacting to foods. Her stools are continuously mucousy, but I've noticed increases with probiotics. Are probiotics okay to continue every day with her stools being this way? Okay, so mucus on a standard American diet or with foods that could be allergens. So mucus on with foods that are like grain, starch, sugar, showing you that's not okay. Mucus, when you're in a healing protocol, is a good thing. We want the mucus to leave the body. Just like when we're cold, we need to cough out that phlegm in our lungs. We don't want that phlegm to sit there. We need to get out. So anytime there's mucus leaving in the stools when you're on a healing protocol, that is a good thing. Mucus leaving in the stools from adding in a probiotic could be a good thing. If it worries you too much, you can always reduce the dose, okay? You don't have to stay pushing with probiotic foods or with healing foods. You can take it at a pace that feels really good. She
just fell asleep, but I need to get ready to go. Can I try to transfer her to you?
Home birth baby. Can you mute that person? Thank you. Home birth baby, but baby ended up in the NICU, antibiotics for both of us, and had anesthesia from surgery. He got eczema all over his body at 3 or 4 months. Found coconut in my diet to be a culprit. Now has mild eczema on his extremities, super red, super dry, cracking cheeks. Give him organic whole foods and smidge. She also has an egg allergy. Aside from adding more nutrient foods, do you think I need to detox for the drugs he was avoidingly giving? How do you detox the baby? Okay. You detox through building. Plain and simple answer. You build the body with healing foods, nutrient dense foods, meat stock, meat close to the bone, bone marrow, organ meats, not egg yolk in this case because your baby's allergic. Those foods are going to help your body detox. You can also add in detox baths, which I teach in the course. Juice can be helpful depending I don't know how old your baby is, but juicing, I just started. Juice is actually, fresh pressed juice is one of the first things in the baby GAPS protocol in a small amount. Some babies have a hard time with it, so we just leave it out for a period. I don't feel it's near as important as those building foods like I just named: meat stock, bone marrow, organ meats, yolk, etc., animal fats. But like, interestingly, my son, I just started giving him some fresh pressed juice. I'm ready to get back into juicing. My juicer broke, so I've been on a break. And he had like mucus in his stools. And I was like, okay, so there's like some die-off reaction happening. Cool. And it's just like, that was something we don't usually have. He has some carrot juice. I blended it with kefir and yolks. He drank it. He had mucus stools. Like, okay, cool. So that's like something that's telling me something. The next time he drank it and the next stools were not mucusy. So could have just been a one-time event. We could try another vegetable and it could come back again. It could go on for several days. But I know because of his system, what he's getting in, there's nothing inflammatory for him. There's nothing that's aggravating his system. He's just getting healing foods, so that anything I see coming out in his behavior, his sleep, his mood, his stools, it's die off, and it's a good thing. It's a healing sign. My daughter has bouts of eczema since she was a baby, mostly on her cheeks and leg. We follow a strict ancestral diet when I was pregnant, and her first foods: bone marrow, yolks, and liver. Beautiful. We didn't introduce any grains until after 1. She'll have white rice every once in a while. She still has flare-ups and we can't figure it out. Do raw milk, dairy in her diet now? Could raw milk do it? It's probably the rice. I would say she just still needs more healing, and just put her on a more strict diet, GAPS. Because when they're 1, they don't know it's strict. I mean, if they've already had those, I'll just call them processed foods. For this, a better way would just be saying like grains. And I hope you're properly preparing them. You probably are, because you're following ancestral diet, but like, they can get addicted to those foods even at a very young age. My son can still be addicted to fruit and blackberries even though he's very young. His gut's compromised. So the second that yeast blooms and that yeast gets a taste of that sugar, what's that yeast going to demand? The yeast will demand the fructose. Okay, I'm not saying fruit's bad, because people get really on me about this one. Fruit's bad? How could fruit be bad? Blah, blah, blah. It's not. It's dependent on the state of the microbiome, and we're using our observation skills. If your child does fine on fruit and you don't see any issues, you can keep giving them fruit. Seasonal, delicious backyard fruit, wonderful. That is not the case for my son. So in this case, yes, it could be dairy. Lactose feeds pathogenic overgrowth. It can flare eczema. It could be rice. It could be any sugary, starchy food that's feeding the microbiome imbalances. It could also just mean that she needs more building food. She needs more beneficial strains of bacteria coming from homemade fermented foods, coming from milk kefir. If you're feeding her raw dairy, I would just switch to kefir and just like, let's do some kefir, fam. And it's delicious and it's so amazing, so good for babies. And I teach the ins and outs of kefir in the course. My other question is if we should be taking methylated vitamins. I am double homogenous for the MTHFR gene. My natural ability to process vitamins is decreased. I like Dr. Ben Lynch's work around MTHFR. He has some high quality supplements. In no way are all supplements created equal, and sometimes methylated B vitamins can be inhibitors, but people with MTHFR do really well on nutritional protocol such as CAPS. Okay, so Alex is at the bottom of the chat and he's saying, I'm getting a lot of questions about the course. And so I'm getting DMs about the course, I guess direct chats, which I'm not there yet. So the course is, all right, I'll go back up to this one, Christiana at 11:29 and check out these so I can follow. Smidge, Instagram stories. Yep. How to start kefir at home. Teach that in the course. It's the easiest ferment you can make. You'll be amazed at how wonderful and easy it is. If as a mom, we don't know how to fix our own gut and the baby's breastfeeding, would that cause a problem for them, even if they're doing the protocol? Can you talk about that? Yeah. So this is about mom and baby, mama baby biome, and how we work together, how we use solid food introduction to learn about how the body works, but also like healing our guts as the mother, which means those healing foods that I've been talking about: meat stock, probiotic brines, meat close to the bone, local seasonal vegetables cooked well, soups and stews. Like this, these are the staples. Is store-bought kefir okay to use? No, it's pasteurized and it reduces, it's just not beneficial. So it's kind of a waste of money because the microbes are not there. Babe, I cannot see these questions. So I need. Okay, so the course, self-paced course, each module has lectures, nutrition lectures, and it has downloads and guides for you to go step by step. So we start out talking about digestion, how digestion works. We talk about how to heal leaky gut. We talk about how to start solids for babies. And accompanying all these nutrition lectures are 10 cook-alongs, which I recommend doing one cook-along a week. It's about a 2-hour cooking session. You can pause and play me. And they come with recipes and shopping lists, all which are appropriately aligned with the nutrition that I teach. And so this is probably the best part about my course, is that not only am I teaching you the nutrition, but I'm teaching you the cooking skills to implement it with over 100 recipes on how to use food as medicine for healing. So if you're a mom and you don't know how to heal your gut, that is exactly what I teach you in this course: why certain foods are not gut healers and why certain foods are. I also talk about like nutrition context in general. So why is mainstream nutrition pushing one thing, and why there's some renegade nutritionists out there who are pushing another thing, which is all about, like, for me, it just really comes back to how the body works. So in the course, we have 9 modules. And the first part of the course, like the first 5 modules, are talking to you about microbiome health, gut health, starting baby on solids, picky eating, allergies, immune stuff. So all those symptoms. And then we have the second half of the course, which teaches you about lifestyle, detox protocols, how to support this diet as a whole, because it's sometimes we need to help our body open up detox pathways, or the foods are doing that, and we need to aid the body with like removing these toxins more and helping the gut heal more. And so, simple things like a detox bath, which is wonderful for children's, for mom. We put special things in the bath to help our skin heal, to help toxins leave from the skin. We go into specific protocols like enemas, which is my favorite thing. I love to teach enemas. Enemas can help you so much. And if it freaks you out, then that's great because you have the course with me taking you step by step through it. And it can be a very powerful, powerful healer. It's not a coffee enema, although you can get to a coffee enema. I just teach a basic healing enema solution, which is something that your great grandmother would have had hanging in her bathroom. It's super, they have been around for so long. It's safe. You can't get addicted to it. It's very healing, very healthy. And I teach you how. And then we have that cook along portion that I was talking about, which is right here in this kitchen where we go through a beautiful meal and leftovers for you to have for your family each week. So that is super beneficial. And it's like, you know, building blocks for getting this rhythm into your family. That's what the kitchen work is all about. We have a super robust Facebook group where people ask questions, and there's downloads and there's cookbooks you can download that I wrote specifically for this work. And so it is $100 off for the next 24 hours and then $85 off for the following week. Or is it 80? 70. Okay. Today's the day for $100 off, then it goes $70 off, then it goes $50 off. So throughout this week is the best sale because you're going to get $100 off today, $70 off throughout the week, and then ongoing, there's just a coupon code for 50 if you should need that. Okay. Any clarifying questions about the course specifically? No, because okay. I'm coming back up here to these questions. I'm going to sit down actually, because thank you. Ugh. Okay. All right. Okay. My son and I both have a rash that flares up on our face, and I was feeling defeated because we've been following this protocol for over a year now. I'd love to know more about this. Yeah, sometimes stuff comes up, and like sometimes you have to tweak what you're eating and what you're not eating. So could be need for more meat stock, could be need to introduce a specific kind of probiotic, like maybe it's beet kvass, maybe it's kefir. The flaring ongoing is just a part of the healing. But also you might need to like work with someone to really like nail it down. My baby has very bad cradle cap, and I have bad eczema, and my husband has psoriasis and I had to have antibiotics after birth. If this is yeasty, should I add ferments? Yeah, you should. Yeast is the root of eczema, as also cradle cap. But I don't just recommend adding ferments. I recommend doing the whole protocol as I teach in Mama Baby Biome, and really would be great for the whole family. I have a lot of whole, like total families on the call, and it's really wonderful. Okay, have you had any success using the GAPS diet to heal SIBO? Yes, it takes the no plant GAPS or GAPS introduction diet first. You can make your own formula. Yes, you can. What do you mean by weaning them off formula as fast as possible? Yes, so we want to wean them off formula as fast as possible because this dehydrated milk with all the long list of ingredients is damaging to the microbiome. So when you're introducing solid foods, you can wean them off of the formula fast because you're using nutrient dense foods to feed them, and no longer they won't need the formula anymore. So I teach you the exact steps and how to do that in my masterclass, Solid Foundations. My point of view on parasites, and do you address this in your course? What do you do? What functional testing do you use? Suggest any for mom and baby? I use no testing. Not to say that you wouldn't or couldn't. Testing can be something, but I always recommend like doing 6 months of healing with food before doing testing, just because you could probably clear up a lot of stuff before really having to spend money on tests. Point of view on parasites is that everyone has parasites. Babies have parasites, humans have parasites. A lot of times parasites have really important roles in the body. So we don't want to just like cleanse them out of us. We want to build the system, build the ecosystem, and parasites will leave the body when the time is right for your body. Parasites can be cleansers. Usually when there's parasites, there's metals. So we don't want to just kill those parasites, because then what do we have is floating metals around the body. This can go to your brain. This can go to other organs. This is bad. Then this is probably like the most differentiated approach about what I teach and what's out there about like gut health and gut cleansing and da 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 da. We are not just eliminating and eradicating unwanted species. We are supporting the health of the body, and the body can then itself do what it needs to do. So we are inputting fermented foods, fermented dairy. We are inputting healing foods like meat stock, which is going to change the environment where those microbes live and which ones can thrive and which ones cannot. And then the body is going to clean itself up and let things leave in its own time, which in my opinion and my experience is a much healthier and safer way to go about gut health, gut repair, parasites. But I'm telling you, I've passed parasites. I've seen parasites in diapers. I've seen parasites, it's just, they come out. They will come out using food this way, especially with the support of detox baths, enemas, going outside, getting plenty of good sunshine, etc. The best fermented foods, all of them. Specifically, I teach about sauerkraut, fermented carrots, any like local vegetable. I love fermented dairy. We do a 24-hour fermented dairy on GAPS, which is not meaning all the lactose and casein is digested properly, so the body is not having to deal with that. Alex answered. Would raw milk dairy be a good food group? If you have eczema, I would do fermented dairy. Struggling with thrush and low milk supply. Every time I try to starve the yeast, my supply drops to nothing. I'm not sure why this is, and I'm struggling to get enough breast milk already. I'm consistently making my own raw milk formula to help supplement. Good. Baby had antibiotics due to group B strep. Should I consider raw milk formula? Should I continue searching for extra breast milk? You're asking great questions. Okay, low milk supply. I would recommend my course, because I'm going to teach you like how to get enough food, what foods to really prioritize. Thrush in the baby's mouth, I wouldn't worry about that so much. Like if you're having more stress, like the thrush is there, so we see it. We know it will go away with time and the proper foods. If it's stressing you out and you're cutting out, you're starving the yeast by cutting out these candida feeding foods, and you're then actually really hungry and the thrush is still there, I would just not try that approach. I mean, we don't cut out all candida feeding foods on GAPS because we know the candida is there for a reason. Gentian and violet specifically can be really helpful for thrush. And the main thing I would say for you is adding in beneficial strains of yeast, either through a probiotic supplement, Saccharomyces boulardii, or milk kefir. And I would love to have you in the course, because I think it will help answer a lot of your questions. You have a really, like, I see that you understand a lot of it and you're trying in all these ways. And I think there's some key pieces that will just connect dots for you and make you be like, oh, okay, now I really get what I'm doing with healing my body. And considering raw milk formula or extra breast milk for moms, I mean, how old is your baby? You could start them on solids pretty soon, probably. And I would probably go I don't know. It depends. Like if the milk from other moms, like, do you know what they're eating? Does that make you feel more comfortable in your nervous system? Does that make you feel more relaxed? Or does making the raw milk formula feel better for you? If you can't get your hands on raw grass-fed dairy, would organic kefir still be a good choice? Yes, but you would need to make it at home from low pasteurized grass-fed, grass-finished milk. It doesn't have to be raw. Saccharomyces boulardii for mom to take, and then gentian violet for baby, no more than 7 days of it. My baby's the same and always has huge spit up. Around 1 month, they started to have really watery and mucousy poops. She's almost 4 months, did stool testing, and they didn't find anything. That's common. She said that she might be reacting to what I eat, but not sure. what do you think I could do from your experience to start and target it and treat it? I would, if you can, go on full gaps for you, Mama Irina. And around 4 months, if she's on formula, you can start giving her meat stock. I did for my baby at 5.5. He was really interested in food. You know, there's a lot of opinions out there about when babies should start. You could just do plain meat stock for like 3 weeks, really, before even adding anything else if you start a little bit earlier. How do I address everyone's individual case and health history in your course? I don't address everyone's individual health history. I do have an add-on for an optional one-to-one, and some moms choose that. And some moms have been with me doing one-on-ones throughout the course just because it makes them feel comfortable. And other moms have just been in the course and been accelerating. Typically, the course itself answers those questions because I've worked in this way for so long that I anticipate the questions that people are going to ask. And then if there's more specific things that have come up and people want to troubleshoot, that goes in the Facebook group, and moms also weigh in on it. Can you recommend anything for people without a gallbladder? I had my gallbladder removed when I was 19. Yep. So, which I learned after was a possible side effect of birth control. And now I can't eat too much fat or I get really nauseous. Yep. So what happens for you is that your liver has now made a little pouch for you that secretes bile. And so you still are producing bile, but likely you need to clean up your gut, and you need to give your body more probably B vitamins to support your liver. And you might also want to supplement every once in a while with ox bile supplements. You don't stay on this for life, but actually, since your gallbladder is removed, I think you can use ox bile for an extended period of time. When people are on ox bile and they have a gallbladder, the gallbladder basically gets lazy and doesn't produce bile. But in your case, it would be something to look into and work with either me or through the course under just get a few more details than just answering in this. I have some, but I don't like taking it before every single meal. Yeah, most of the time I'm still nauseous anyway. Okay, so yep, I think that you would want to just like look about the foods that really work for you and figure that out, and maybe do full gaps for an extended 6 months or something and see what changes for you, and then go from there. My 21-month-old regularly has hives. They are worse at different times and better at times. Would the cause of his hives be similar to your explanation of eczema? Yes. If we don't know what our food allergies are, is it best to find that out before we start gaps? No. It's best to just start healing your body with gaps, and it'll be clear something you can't digest. And like, okay, so the approach also that we take, not always with babies, but you can just kind of, anything that's not a life-threatening IgE allergy, which is a smaller percentage of people that have those, you can just bust on through the allergy. Like, I mean, for, a mom who's stressed, like maybe you want to just take it really slow, and that's mostly what I recommend. But, if you're seeing like just little things come up here and there from a healing food, like properly fermented dairy, that would be something to just keep on going through. So could bone broth be a negative effect on our microbiome? Yes, it could. Both are good, but meat stock is better. Meat stock is better, and meat stock is for most people with, like, if you drink bone broth and you don't really feel any symptoms from it, you're probably fine. If you think you're in good health, you're in good health, and you have a robust system, bone broth occasionally is great. Like, we have a bone broth occasionally, but the main thing we do is meat stock because it's just so much better. Like, it's just so much more nutrient dense. How to get a baby to consume meat stock? He's 8 months old. He won't eat anything. Yeah, put in a bottle, put it on your finger, swipe it in his mouth. You have to just be really consistent. This is actually a somewhat common question I get. Most of the babies are just like, meat stock, nom, 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 nom. But what could be happening is it could be causing a die-off reaction in his mouth. And so we would just sort of like, you just keep being persistent. You don't give him other foods besides your breast milk, which hopefully you're having your full GAPS diet too. And, or, clean, nutrient dense, ancestral. And then you just keep working with baby. Where would you suggest starting when your baby has this? Okay, we got there. Okay. Is constant hiccups a sign that something's wrong in the gut? It's usually yeast. Is raw milk better than kefir? I personally like kefir. Both are great beneficial foods. Kefir is a little, kefir has all the benefits that raw milk has, plus 60 to 70 beneficial strains of yeast and bacteria. I've been vegetarian my whole life. Meat is basically not something I can get my head around, but I feel like there may be something to look at to address my gut health for my son. He does eat a little meat, but not a lot or often. My gut too, of course, but I don't eat meat. So I teach meat-based healing. I find that it's essential for what we're doing here. It's essential for rebuilding. And where I would suggest that you start, if you are open to starting with some meat, would be some really clean chicken stock made from feet, carcass, necks, and getting your baby on that too. I do have some moms who have been vegetarian for their life and have done successfully on the protocol and have done really well in the course, but it has to be something that you yourself like want to do because it is a very meat centric class. Resources do you have for markets to get the best meat and bones? Yeah, we teach you how to source, how to ask the right questions in the class. And we definitely want to have a database around the world of regenerative meat, but we don't have that yet. Do I suggest doing a parasite cleanse? No, I suggest doing what I've talked about, like how the body builds. So you basically asked that, you said, will doing this type of work be its own cleanse? Yes. Someone told me not to do gaps while nursing, said I'll dump toxins to the baby. Thank you for bringing that up. That is a really misunderstood conception out there about gaps. And it is, we're dumping toxins to the baby anyway. And you're not doing gaps intro. We're not doing a heavy metal detox. We're not doing coffee enemas. We're eating real food, which is helping the body heal the gut. You mentioned liver capsules, but how do you administer them to your baby? Awesome. All right, my son's here. He's asleep. I can keep talking softly. Yeah. Okay. Does the course have tips and tools for working towards the GAPS lifestyle for children 3 and above who are picky? Yes, I do, because a lot of the moms who have a picky eater or they have babies that are older and their symptoms have shown up and showed us what it's all about, they now are having their second baby. And so they're trying to do things differently from the get. And it's really applicable to work on GAPS with the whole family. So I absolutely include picky eating because this is one of the things that is the most common today. It's so important to address because not only are we addressing the picky eating, but we're addressing the nutrient deficiencies that is a result of the picky eating. So I did a little picky eating themed week on my Instagram. You can go and check out all those reels. It's just a little bit down. There's one starts around when my son is eating berries from the backyard. So you can find that there. Where do you get your goat milk kefir? I make it myself. Hi, is this meeting recorded? Yes. What was the name of the probiotic? Wow. Yeah, thrush. That would be addressed in the course, and also Genti and Violet. Any stories for healing tonsillitis? Looking for hope. Oh, such a good question. I don't have a specific tonsillitis person, but like client that I've worked with, but there's probably a GAPS. There is definitely a GAPS person who has done that. And I was just reading about Dr. Natasha and what she was saying about the tonsils and strep. So strep throat, streptococcus. I don't know if this is related, but I'm going to say it anyway. Strep throat is one of those times where antibiotics can obviously be life-saving and you might have to use them at some point. In order to treat strep throat from the root and also group B strep, which is brought up on my Instagram the other day, we want to add in beneficial strains of streptococci, and that comes from milk kefir. So if you have tonsillitis, I would recommend doing fatty foods like animal-based. I would recommend doing meat stock. I would recommend doing milk kefir and really working with full GAPS. Hi. Yeah, hi. I love you. I thought you were asleep. You were asleep, huh? Okay. All right, so we're winding down on time here because I got to get to the farmer's market. Let's see. I think you might have to take him. Yeah, we're talking raw milk kefir. Managed suggestions to manage the itch from eczema. Yes, so eczema is an inside job, but we also I have all my topical tips and tricks in the course, and a lot of that is things that you would consume. So things that are going to nourish your skin are going to be like animal fats, tallow, lard, olive oil. Baths are really, really, really good because baths help us to change the pH of the skin. So when we have eczema, it's coming from the inside. That's changed the pH of the skin microbiome, which then invites other types of bacteria and infections. That's why something like an eczema patch might be tested and show positive for staph, or babies go into the hospital or doctor's office with eczema, they come out with MRSA because the pH of the skin is changed, and that makes the skin available for other pathogens to come in. Yep. Okay. How to change a 3-year-old's diet to strict? Great question. I really go over this in the course, so I'm just going to say one note on this, but it's all about being firm about the foods that they're allowed to have and not allowed to have, and sometimes they boycott. And you have to just stay the course, stay with the protocol. You might want to experience some of that meat stock and healing foods in your own body first before you decide to set this arrangement up for your family. But I will tell you, picky eaters in my course, they do the protocol. The parents stand strong about savory healing foods, and they boycott, and then it breaks open because the parents stayed strong for so long, and their palate changes and their skin stuff clears up and they're no longer picky eaters. With the shopping list you mentioned, can we get everything we need from a general store? We'd have to get it somewhere special. Okay, Alex says, pantry items often sourced at a general store. Local farms will have your local veg, fruit, meat. A blend of everything makes your life easier. Yeah, you can source everything, I would say, from a grocery store. Like, I don't have a ton of esoteric ingredients. Like, one time I taught about nigella seeds, which is like a specific, it's like a black cumin seed, and it was in a salad, and like you could leave that out, right? Like, or you could order it on Amazon and have it. It would just be, most of the food that I'm teaching is like organ meatballs, pork butt, sausage and kale soup, fermented carrots, right? So all that stuff can come from the grocery store. It's real food at its finest. And what I teach you to build up to, if you're not used to going to the farmer's market or sourcing local, is to source local and to try just one little thing, one little part at your farmer's market. And to my surprise, this is one of the favorite parts of the course. People say, I can't believe how meaningful it is to connect to my farmer. I never knew I cared about this so much. So cool, because that was my mission too. You say self-love over, but how long is it if you binge it? Oh, you say self-paced. You say self over. I think it maybe means self-paced. You say self-paced, but how long is it if you binge it? I guess you could finish it in like a month, maybe sooner.
Yeah, I said like the cook along's really slow. You actually have to get through the food.
Yeah, I mean, cook along, like it's a big course. It's a big course. So binging it, that would be fun. I could say you could get through it in a month, or if if you're in the Facebook group and you're like, this is my thing, I'm having my baby, etc., or whatever reason why you're going fast, then I could say this one, hit those ones later.
Oh, they say we're off there, so you can push it over.
If you're off dairy, okay? If you're off dairy, then yeah, you would just apply the allergy stuff like I talked about. So you wouldn't go onto milk kefir right away, but I have dairy videos that go into more detail about how to just differentiate and decide, where you are in the dairy introduction protocol. If you can't do milk kefir, oftentimes goat milk kefir is fine, but we work through dairy. Like, can you tolerate ghee? Yes, check. Can you tolerate butter? Yes, check. Can you tolerate whey? Yes. So it's a step-by-step process, just like that. Instant Pots are GAPS approved. Can you touch on why they might be detrimental? Yeah, we're just using like a very high heat and temperature, and it changes the structure of the food and makes it more difficult to digest. Look, I don't think Instant Pots are like the end all be all. If you're doing all traditional foods and you're occasionally using an Instant Pot, I think it's fine. Like, I don't think you really need to worry about it too much. I just don't teach Instant Pots as a part of my protocol. I don't use them really as a part of my healing. We have one. We've used it a handful of times. It can come in a lot of handy, or it can come in handy in a pinch and that kind of thing. But just maybe shift if your cooking is 10 or 100% Instant Pot. Can you do 75 Instant Pot and 25% something else? Or can you, just work with that? Do you think there's a correlation between increased flu and COVID vaccines and the uptick in illnesses, poor gut health, and autoimmune issues? Yes, I do. Vaccines can be very damaging to the gut, of course. They contain lots of metals and all sorts of crazy things. So they're definitely going to damage the gut. And that's like, Robert Kennedy, he's done a ton of work. I actually love his story because he's a fisherman by like his hobby, and he was lobbying for these high amounts of metals that was showing up in the fish that he was loving to fish. And these moms intercepted him and said, hey, if you're worried about mercury levels in the fish, why don't you check out this vaccine? And so his whole life trajectory changed, and he started advocating for mothers who had been injured with their babies had been injured by vaccines. So the approach with the vaccination from the GAPS perspective and from my perspective is, if your baby is not 100% healthy, do not get a vaccine. If you want to vaccinate, do not get multiple vaccines at one time. And if your baby has a runny nose, any little stitch of illness or symptom, do not give them a vaccine until they're completely healthy. And I think Dr. Natasha recommends, like, if you want to vaccinate, up to, wait till 4 years old. My son is not vaccinated. Obviously, my husband and I were on a childhood vaccine scheduled. We did not participate in any of the recent vaccinations, and we will not vaccinate our son. I usually don't talk about that because it's such a scary place to go, and you get banned from the internet, which is my way that I connect with all of you. So I don't talk about it. What's my thoughts on cheese? Love cheese. Cheese is amazing, high quality, properly fermented cheese. There's a lot of cheese that's on GAPS, and when your healthy gut is, ready for cheese, go for it, baby. I have an exclusively breastfed 10-month-old, and he has terrible gas. We're working on introducing foods. What do you recommend? Yeah, you don't feel comfortable giving him gas medicine relief. That's your good mama intuition. So you got to work on his introduce solids the way that I teach. It's a really beautiful protocol. So I didn't tell you the end of this story, but son's spitting up 85% lessened when I changed my diet and stopped eating sugar and grains, which was feeding yeast. And once I added in meat stock, he had one big burp, literally, and never spit up again. So it was super straightforward for me. And that shows me that in his upper GI, there was yeast overgrowth. And so once he had that meat stock, it helped him heal on his own. Obviously, breast milk is very healing, very good for him. And I loved our breastfeeding journey. I'm still nursing, even though I'm pregnant, and we're working out the details there of what the next step is. But yeah, he thrived on the solid foods, and I did it very slowly and very meticulously. And his body showed me what he needed. Does the course speak to possible variations for the GAPS diet? For my son and I, he has hives, and I have a lot of food intolerances and gut issues. So is a specialized variation not needed? Yes, it definitely speaks to specialized variations. I teach full GAPS, but I really talk about the principles. And so on full GAPS, for example, nuts are on full GAPS. And I would say my family's on full GAPS, but my son has not had nuts, and I'm not giving him nuts. And, we can't just turn to GAPS and say, like, oh yeah, like almond flour is allowed, so let's make 1 million almond flour sweet things. That's not going to heal your gut. Okay. What's going to heal your gut are those building foods, animal foods, fermented foods. That's really powerful healing. And you lean onto those foods, even if the whole foods are allowed. And like, let's say the holidays are coming up and you might have some sweet treats that sneak in here and there. And that's okay, because the maintaining of your diet is really those building foods that are so powerful. And you could add on a one-on-one, and like I give the discounted one-on-one throughout the course. So like if you don't immediately buy the one-on-one, then you can add it on at any time. What's the protocol for purchasing kefir? So you got to get your grains and you got to make it yourself at home. Interesting. So she's basically saying like the environment's impacting what he can eat. And then when we have environmental stuff going on, that just points us to our gut microbiome. So I'm like sensitive to mold. My husband is not. You know, we have different microbiomes. We have different ways of working in our like world and health. And when I am at my healthiest, I'm less affected by mold. I used to have seasonal allergies. I don't anymore because I healed and sealed my gut. So when we have leaky gut and things come in from the outside that are not suitable for the environment, then we'll have symptoms. But if the gut's healed and sealed, oh, I think I just answered your question. I have a 10-month-old. He has terrible gas. I don't feel comfortable giving him gas medicine. He's just starting food, so I'm looking for guidance. Do you recommend me starting the GAPS diet or other recommendations? Yeah, I recommend the course. And sorry, there's just so many questions. That's why I'm still working my way down to you. I've been told that going straight into GAPS can seal toxins into the body, creating a longer-term health problem down the road. Is that inaccurate? That's weird to me. I've never heard that, and I don't think that that's true. I mean, the thing is, what we're doing on GAPS is we're feeding the body real food, local food, and we're adding in fermented foods that are changing the ecosystem. So it's not going to seal anything in. Sometimes I think what can happen is people will be on GAPS for 6 months and they'll be like, oh, I'm doing so good. And then they go back on the other foods and then they have like an even stronger reaction. So sometimes that can happen, you know, a symptom that was maybe really mild before, when they start healing, they introduce whatever input that triggered that symptom and it's way worse. That's just because your body's in the middle of a healing process and it's like, what the heck? Are minerals discussed in the course? I'm seeing a lot about this right now, as such as potassium deficiencies. Does that fit into the GAPS gut healing protocol? Yeah. So I was the like metabolic diet and pro-metabolic diet and mineral healing is so popular, and for good reason, because minerals are super important. GAPS absolutely addresses mineral depletion. And, you know, like something that's very trendy right now is something like an adrenal cocktail. And I address adrenal health a little bit differently because adrenals love cholesterol. So like my adrenal cocktail is a thing of meat stock with 4 egg yolks. I love fresh pressed juice. So that would be another adrenal cocktail with egg yolks and kefir mixed in, blended in. Or if you're not doing dairy, you would do coconut oil. When you're on full GAPS, you're getting everything that you need. And I also talk about, you know, my favorite magnesium supplements, and GAPS is a pro-metabolic diet. My favorite magnesium supplements, vitamin C. I talk about supplementation in the course. Small things. It's a food first approach, but there's small things that can help. What are my thoughts on jaggery? Jaggery is a type of sugar from, I think, India. This, like, culturally it's used, and it's sugar that feeds gut pathogens. The only sweetener that's allowed is honey. But I think jaggery, like if that's your cultural sweetener, it doesn't have to be out of your life forever, but taking it out for a period of time. It's less processed sugar, so it's going to have like more minerals. Like when we were living in Hawaii, we would drink straight up fresh pressed cane juice, and that's going to be like a more mineral rich, less processed sugar, which is better for the body. You know, we can tolerate that every once in a while. Same with jaggery, less processed sugar, better than, not a GAPS food, not a healing food, so to speak, but also really good for like oxytocin and every once in a while, and like a better than sweetener option. I don't think raw dairy is allowed sold in Canada. Any idea where to source from? Yeah, you have to probably just find it on the black market. It's not allowed in every state here either. A lot of times when it's legal to be sold in stores, what that means is you own a part of the cow and you have a cow share. But I know there's people in my course from Canada also, and they would know. Is water kefir as beneficial as? Oh yeah, or it's labeled as pet food. Is water kefir as beneficial as milk kefir? No, but it's still pretty good. Thank you for talking about that. Really powerful to hear your thoughts. Yay, RFK. Heck yeah. My 8-year-old was vax injured. He's on the spectrum as a result. We did GAPS at the beginning when he was diagnosed, but we also told to avoid dairy. What are your thoughts? He's still gluten-free and dairy-free. I think that you can heal his gut enough, and you can use dairy to heal his gut with autism, and he can have properly prepared dairy with being on the autism spectrum. And there's lots of kids who would, and it would be like a step-by-step process of first starting with ghee and going all the way through the dairy introduction protocol. I think it'd probably be really beneficial for him, especially if you get some really high quality dairy. Is the Thanksgiving cookbook the same recipes I would get in Mom Movie Biome? No, completely different. Is $100 off until the end of the day or 24 hours? Till 11 a.m. tomorrow. So 24 hours.
12 p.m.
12. Okay. Alex and I, we work as a team, a great team, and I didn't get all my details straight. Any specific kitchen appliance needed for the course? Ferments like yogurt maker? Yeah, I put those all in the course. Yogurt maker, glass jars. I try to keep it pretty basic. Like the way that I have it organized is like need to have, good to have, fun to have, you know? So it's like first, you know, if you don't want to make like a full investment in all this new kitchen supplies, where do we start with the most important thing and then move on from there? Oh my gosh, a marathon. Made it through all those questions. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. 38 people are still here live. That's awesome. I would love to have you in the course. I would love to continue this dialogue. And if you have friends that need to hear this, you can send them the sign up link and they can get the recording. So we're doing $100 off until 12 p.m. tomorrow. Woo, amazing. Biggest sale. And I'm going to have the course on sale for the rest of the week, but it won't be as good as this. So if you're thinking about it, now's the time. I know I ran a sale in September and people missed that and they were like, when's the next sale? And so I've been priming you for this sale. And we put the course on sale maybe like a couple times a year. I am going to go on maternity leave in March. And this is like my most comprehensive offering that I have. Like I said, you can add one-on-ones to it, but it's very thorough and you will get a lot out of it. There's a lot of testimonials on the page. There's a lot of testimonials on my Instagram stories. If anyone's here who's in the course currently, feel free to chime in.
You talk about the Facebook group?
Yeah, I talked about the Facebook group. What's the code, Al?
BF Save.
BF Save is the code to get $100 off. It's at the top of the page, so you don't have to remember it. It's on the site. Yep, you get instant access right away. Does anyone want to come off mute and say anything?
This was great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so glad. It's definitely one of my favorite things. I mean, it is my favorite topic. I think it's just so important for moms to know this. And like, when I was like Googling the spitting up thing, I was just laughing at the answers. I'm like, okay, it was either like no clue or like it would be like too much milk, which can be like, I was like, okay, he is a big eater. He could be eating too much milk, but like also, is that it? I don't think so. Yeah. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. It was so lovely. Oh, hey Rachel.
Yeah.
Cute
Hey,
baby.
thanks. Yeah, I deal with very similar things. Like she has eczema like on her neck and I have eczema personally. So this was very informative. And I've always been into the holistic like nutrition healing. So this was very informative and I appreciated it.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for coming off and saying that. That's wonderful. Yeah, the Facebook group is just in the course. And if you have babies that drink meat stock and you want to send me a video of them on my DMs, that'd be awesome.
I have a question for you, Kate.
Yeah.
So I'm just very inspired by you because you have an 18-month-old. How did you create this course? Like after he was born, going through everything you went through?
Yeah, that's a good question. People ask me that, like, how do you do everything? It's partly my personality. I'm an Aries and I'm just like very driven and very fiery. But also I'd been building courses for a long time. Like I taught a course called Every Meal Healing, and I taught gut and vaginal health, and I taught these live cook-alongs. And I just had like suddenly, once my baby was born, all this information synthesized, and I was like, I have to get this out. This is so important. My husband actually came up with the name. He was like, it should be Mama Baby Biome. And I was like,
Perfect. Yeah.
and we worked together on it. I did 2 live rounds of the course, and that really helped me like inform what it needed to be, and I answered a lot of questions and worked out kinks. And then now I've been selling it passively because people can just automatically buy it. They don't have to wait for me to be ready to teach live. And getting it out has been like, now I can like rest a little bit
Yeah.
more. And I'm pregnant again, so I need to rest.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to taking it.
Yay, thank you.
Payment plan day?
Yeah, payment plan is also applicable with the code. So we have a slight upsell for the payment plan. It's a really slight upsell for a payment plan. just $1 more for the payment plan. So you can use the coupon code, and I guess yep.
You mentioned in the Facebook group that the link's not working. Someone's asking.
Oh yeah, if you just bought the course and the Facebook link isn't working, it expires every 2 days, which is super bizarre. So I just have to change it, and I will change that right away. Oh my goodness, Augie, you say hi? Yeah, these people are gonna join Mama Baby Biome. Yeah, we taught them all about spitting up and gut health, starting solids. What's your favorite food? Liver. Yeah. All right, everyone. So we're headed to the farmer's market to get our Thanksgiving foods. And it was really, really nice to be with you all. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. And this is Alex. He's our tech guy.
And Butcher.
And Butcher.
You'll see me in the course.
And he's in the course. We have a Butcher's Corner. He comes around and shares. Wonderful. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.